The broad objective of the R.E.A.C.H project is to enhance the capability of small farmers and their communities to organize and manage agricultural disaster risk management initiatives through improved access to and joint management of relevant agro-meteorological information and joint design and implementation of adequate agricultural risk management practices to enhance their resilience to shocks and hazards. And I believe that during the course of of today, you will be exposed to a lot of the work being done under the R.E.A.C.H project. So I will not go into any significant detail on the R.E.A.C.H project, but I will continue is that the R.E.A.C.H project is directly aligned to the work being undertaken by the ministry currently, and it specifically sticks to our priority areas 9 and 10, that is the protection, conservation, and sustainable utilization and management of natural and fisheries resources, and also priority area 11, which speaks to disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation to our agricultural, which is embodied in our agricultural policy framework and strategy for St. Lucia for the years 2016 to 2021. I thought the discourse here today, or the delivery today, to focus on more practical things and show how the work of the department, it's really in tune and complements the work of the R.E.A.C.H project. So what I will seek to do is outline some of the ongoing projects that we have that further builds resilience. And if we look towards the forestry sector within the Department of Agriculture, there is a project called Integrating Land, Water, and Ecosystems Management in Caribbean Small Island Developing States, R.E.A.C.H. And this is supported by Jeff and UNEP. The project overall objective is to mitigate the poor biophysical conditions due to, in particular, unsustainable land management practices in the Soufrière watershed, which have impacted both on the communities and the sustainable livelihoods of the population. Specific project interventions are reforestation and rehabilitation of lands along the critical reaches of the upper Fort-St-Jacques and Mini area, which is a particularly vulnerable area in St. Lucia. Alternatively, sustainable and viable livelihoods for selected stakeholder groups and also to build capacity. So achievements today, what has practically been done by the Department of Agriculture. So farm assessments to inform customized restoration plans were conducted on 77 farms within that selected area. Also, there's establishment of a community nursery to produce forest and tree crop seedlings to farmers. In addition, still under the forestry department, there was a mango biodiversity project which was supported by the R.E.A.C.H. That project ended in October 2018 last year. The project overall objective is to improve sustainable land management and capacity to adapt to climate change impacts through the cultivation of mangoes to farm and forest lands in St. Lucia. This is specifically to be achieved through the implementation of climate resilient measures. It is expected that the project will ultimately lead to the rehabilitation of vulnerable watersheds by facilitating slope and riverbank stabilization while generating sustainable livelihoods and food and nutrition security. Major achievements once again. So under this, we were able to rehabilitate 10 hectares, which is equivalent to approximately 25 acres of degraded lands. And these have been planted in the Park Estates, Millet, and Montbois-Den area in Vieux-Fort, and approximately 8.75 kilometers of riverbank planted along the Marquis, Roseau, and Canals River. Further, an island-wide survey of rare mangroves was completed. Also, there is the ongoing Roseau Dam Source Water Protection Plan funded by CDB. And the interventions include restoration and rehabilitation of degraded lands in the upper basin of the Roseau Dam, establishment and maintenance of fly nursery to provide seedlings and planting material, and the achievements to date restoration of 55 hectares of degraded lands above the Rosa Dam, and the production of 25,000 seedlings in the fly nursery. So if we move on to the Water Resources Agency and that sector, there is a project called Strengthening of the Flood Early Warning and Hydrological Data Collection System. This entails the installation of cameras and water level gauges to collect data for hydrological analysis and for alerting purposes. It also includes construction of 2 concrete columns for setting up stations and system maintenance training. More specifically, this will enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of the flood early warning system in the communities of Ancillary, Canneries, and Marshall Castries, and also enhance the Water Resource Management Agency's ability to monitor and manage St. Lucia's water resources through hydrological resources. The resultant video feeds from the camera system aids users issue specific alerts through the siren systems based on hydrological conditions at the locations. There will be enhancement of hydrology modeling capabilities of the Water Resource Management Agency and collection capture of detailed information, which will improve accuracy when formulating watershed management plans. And if we move to the fisheries sector, under the fisheries sector, there is a project in collaboration with the Japanese government. It's under the Japan-Caribbean Climate Change Partnership, where 8 schools have been selected to receive aquaponic systems. And these schools are South Community College, Barbundo Secondary School, Cicero Secondary School, Miku Secondary School, Binfield Secondary School, Viewfort Comprehensive Secondary School Campus B, PI Secondary School, Soufrière Comprehensive Secondary School, and Bus Laguas Combined School. The project aims to use climate smart agriculture to mitigate against the effects of climate change. This is in keeping with the climate change adaptation measures outlined in St. Lucia's sectoral adaptation strategy and action plan for the fisheries sector, which is the fisheries SASAP, that was approved by Cabinet in June 2018. The systems will demonstrate 3 aquaponics growing techniques and will incorporate rainwater harvesting and renewable energy systems. The systems are modular and easily and can easily be duplicated by students and by members of the wider community. The schools have been visited and the locations for the systems have been finalized. All materials have been procured and installation should commence early in the first quarter, which is now from April of 2019-2020. So these projects, ladies and gentlemen, they have been selected to highlight or underscore the ongoing work that the department is undertaking, and I trust that you have a greater appreciation for what is currently happening in the agricultural sector. It is often said that the government and the public sector, we don't communicate and state and give insight into what we do and the work that we undertake. And in the Department of Agriculture, there are a lot of projects and initiatives ongoing that I guess many persons in the public would not be aware of. So this was the thought behind this presentation, to share with you exactly what is being done. So in closing, finally in closing, I would really like to recognize 2 persons. Dr. Jaria, who is supposed to be the FAO consultant, and Mr. Mervyn Angelis, who is the local focal point for this project. And I'd like to thank them for their efforts in organizing and assisting in the launch of this project. I want to wish all participants a really productive and successful meeting, and I wish all of you, those who are coming to St. Lucia, a pleasant and productive stay. Thank you.
I think that this R.E.A.C.H project came to a very timely situation. I mean, I'm sure that all of you remember what happened in 2017 with the hurricane Irma and Maria. I was personally present in Dominica 48 hours after the hurricane, Power 5, that hit the island. And I can tell you that I've seen quite a lot of devastation. And of course, agriculture was an extremely important sector and still is in Dominica. And I can tell you that all the forests in Dominica did not spare one leaf on their trees. So I think that the Caribbean is an area in the world which is very subject to the disasters and the climate change that are happening nowadays worldwide. And of course, Caribbean is one of the focal points where other similar disasters could occur. And St. Lucia could be, let's pray in the name of God that is not going to be, but it could be another island that might be affected from a disaster. A lot of people speak about Barbados and St. Lucia to be one of the safest islands in the Caribbean. But I can tell you, if something is going to happen, it's better we're ready and prepared to reduce the effect of any other type of disaster. And I think the R.E.A.C.H project is really a project that could help us to work in this direction, preparedness. Imagine that for every dollar we invest in preparedness, $5 to $8 are saved in response. And these are studies that FAO has done worldwide. So it means that if we do a project and we invest $1 in this project on preparedness, if something happens, we can save $5 to $8 in response. So I think doing projects which address this area of interest are really important. And I'm sure that St. Lucia also would be very much keen and interested to work more in preparedness, adaptation, mitigation of climate change for the agriculture sector. And I also think that the R.E.A.C.H projects will have a special focus on the youth dimension. I think this is an area that we would like really to try to pilot in St. Lucia. We believe that investing in young entrepreneurs, young farmers, is the future, especially when we want to use some technology, like in the case of R.E.A.C.H, when we want to bring in some med station, we want to do data collection, information management. I mean, there are still our traditional farmers in many countries that do agriculture in their own, way, but still technology is something that needs to be brought on the plate for also those older farmers and the young generation, which is very keen to use technology. So I think that the R.E.A.C.H will have also a lot of focus in this aspect. And indeed, we will really try to work as much as we can with all of you because agriculture is not just food production. Agriculture is livestock, is forestry, is fishery, is crop production, is natural resource management. So these are all the cross sector that we would like to embed as part of this project. And once again, I really thank the Ministry of Agriculture to have us here today. And I really wish a successful workshop and I hope it's going to be a successful project. Thank you.
In 2007, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, in keeping with Priority 3 of our Regional Strategy on Comprehensive Disaster Management, took a decision to work closely with 5 sectors in building resilience to hazards. Agriculture was prioritized as one of these sectors. Since then, we've worked alongside our sector partners in a diverse array of initiatives. First, under the umbrella of the Technical Management Advisory Committee of the JAGDEO Initiative, and most recently, under the Thematic Group on Disaster Risk Management, Climate Change Adaptation, and Natural Resources Management. And that group is chaired by the FAO. This arrangement is a tangible demonstration of our CDM philosophy of sector-led resilience building and sector empowerment to achieve our objectives with the support of SEDIMA. Agriculture is vulnerable to natural hazards, and it is also climate sensitive. Globally, it is widely accepted that out of all natural hazards, floods, droughts, and tropical storms affect the agricultural sector most. The Emergency Events Database tells us that between 1970 and 2014, 445 disasters affected the Caribbean, out of which 85% have been either floods or storms, with significant implications for our productive and social sectors. In this region, in addition to hydrometeorological hazards, the sector has also been severely affected by outbreaks of transboundary pests and diseases and invasive species, such as black sigatoka, the pink mealybug, and the giant African snail. If we take snapshots in recent history, there's a growing body of evidence of damage and losses in the agricultural sector. Hurricane Ivan in Grenada in 2004 resulted in losses to the agricultural sector estimated at $37 million US, and the total average annual revenue available to farmers decreased by 90%. In its 2015 economic review, the Caribbean Development Bank noted that drought caused a decline in agricultural production in Haiti. It also noted that in Suriname, the MOCO disease affected nearly 2,000 hectares of commercial banana plantations and resulted in weak agricultural production. And most recently, according to the Post-Disaster Needs Assessment Report for Dominica in 2017, Hurricane Maria resulted in total damages amounting to US $55.27 million to the sector. In addition, the total cost of the recovery needs for the sector was estimated at US $88.5 million. These disasters have, among other things, contributed to loss of crops and livestock, reduced agricultural productivity, high food prices, and loss of livelihoods of affected farmers and fisherfolk, with impacts on national and regional food and nutrition security. These losses have also brought us to the necessary position that managing disaster risk is a development issue and demands from us as policymakers, technicians, and practitioners the reflection of this position in our decision-making, national policies, and programs. SEDIMA wishes to throw out 4 considerations as we plan the way forward for this project. First, let us as sector stakeholders embrace the results and maximize use of the standardized audit instrument, which gives insight on the level of integration of disaster risk management and climate change adaptation in the sector. We will have a presentation on that study as one of the opening presentations for this workshop. This document, I think, is a useful foundation for a national program on building resilience in the agricultural sector. Secondly, develop implementation approaches which place the R.E.A.C.H project beneficiaries in the driver's seat. And I'm happy that we should have, according to the initial participants list, a number of the farmers' organizations here. And certainly we'll have the opportunity over Tuesday and a little bit of Wednesday to meet some of you in your own spaces. Thirdly, to keep sustainability at the forefront of our discussions in project implementation. And finally, and I added this one as the PS was speaking, I think there may be some opportunities to integrate the activities of the R.E.A.C.H project into some of the ongoing initiatives which were outlined by the Permanent Secretary. I wish to close by expressing appreciation to our implementation partners, the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Physical Planning, Natural Resources and Cooperatives, the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology, the CHIMA Research Foundation, UNFAO, and finally the Italian Agency for Development Cooperation, which has provided the financial support for the project. We're also pleased to have at this morning's opening the representative from CARDI, and please pass our thanks on to Mr. Clark, your Executive Director, for participation. And we think that CARDI's involvement is very important from the lens of replication of the project at a regional scale, but also to highlight any specific policy recommendations emerging from the project so that we can table these at the COTED. I also want to specially recognize Dr. Felix Geria, who has really been a staunch supporter and really provided a lot of assistance to us in the initial stages of the project, and we look forward to working with you through the implementation. The SEDIMA Coordinating Unit therefore pledges its continued commitment to working side by side with our agriculture sector partners in building resilience to hazards, and I look forward to working with you during the day. Thank you.
But I want to first start by bringing you greetings from the principal, Dr. David Farrell, and the staff of the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology. We were established to support national meteorological and hydrological services in this region, with St. Lucia being one of our 16 member states. This R.E.A.C.H project in particular is a personal passion of mine, because despite the fact that I lead the Regional Climate Center at CIMH, I've been working in the field of agrometeorology for almost 3 decades. But more recently, I'm very much linked to this drive to deliver meaningful weather and climate information to the agriculture sector, is that the group I lead there at CIMH, we have been working quite diligently, and I'm sure the staff here, that my colleagues from the St. Lucia Meteorological Services can attest that our diligence in delivering weather and climate information to what we see as climate-sensitive sectors have gone quite a far way over the last few years. Now, agriculture is one of the most climate-sensitive sectors. You've heard Ms. Riley talk about flooding, droughts, tropical cyclones. Very sensitive to these, the agriculture sector is. So the expectation here is that this project will assist us in better tailoring weather and climate information for the agriculture sector. Essentially, in some sense, we are piloting within St. Lucia and the other state under this program, which is in Vincent and the Grenadines. We are actually piloting the provision of weather and climate information, but more particularly at the community level. You'll hear a little bit more about this a little bit later. But you heard my initial statement that I hope I can say at the end of today that I welcome the collaboration and partnership, not only from those at the head table, but from the national agencies, cooperatives, farmers cooperatives I'm talking about, and other important agencies that we'll expect that they will support this project. Because without collaboration, without partnership, this will never work. This will never be successful. Partnership is far more important at the end of the day than the science itself. Yes? So the collaboration and partnership, we'll say yeah and yes at the end of today. You'll hear more from me with regarding the more scientific approach and the collaborative one as well. I'll touch on a little bit as well, a little bit later. But I'll leave it until then. I thank you very much for listening to me.
St. Lucia is one of the small island developing states. We contribute very, very tiny amounts towards the actual process of climate change, yet we perhaps are the most vulnerable and suffer the most when it comes to any natural disaster that happens. Hurricanes, droughts, troughs, the trough in 2013 that caused all the flooding here in St. Lucia, the drought in 2015, that farmers struggled to get water and irrigation systems in place for the crops, and of course the incredible devastation that happened in our neighboring countries from Maria and Irma. The risks and hazards involved are very high, and when it comes to agriculture, it directly impacts on our yields, our markets, the value chain aspects. Pests and diseases can increase. We have the black sigatoka disease, the coconut mites, bacterial and fungal infections, and all of these things are easily affected by minute changes in temperatures and moisture. CADI, in its strategic plan, 2018 to 2022, has put prime focus on climate change mitigation and adaptation, and we are very excited about this R.E.A.C.H project and how we can collaborate so that policy is put in place, the partnerships and the strategic alliances are outlined, and we can work together to ensure that the best projects are implemented so that farmers can directly benefit and thereby food security for the nation and the communities around us. We are hoping that R.E.A.C.H can allow us to merge the traditional with the modern practices. As we know, our farmers here would look at the animal behaviors before a disaster, or the little triggers and changes in plants and how they behave in response to droughts. And so it is important that we capture their traditional practices and merge it with the modern technologies and ICTs that we have running for various climate change projects globally. We right now have a project running in St. Lucia where we're actually examining the technologies used by farmers for climate smart agriculture. Many of the Met Station personnel here would know that I've been calling you for data recently, and that is directly linked to this project because we're looking at what has been happening in the last 10 years in St. Lucia with the climate, and then from that, looking at what our farmers have been using technologically and what we can introduce. So that is one of our projects directly here in St. Lucia that we can perhaps collaborate with for the R.E.A.C.H program. We also have the PPCR project, which is a pilot program for climate resilience. Again, some of the persons in the room would have been called because we were looking at the roots and tubers. Which varieties survived the hurricanes, the disasters? Why? Is it a genetic response? Can we do molecular testing to find out what is going on? And how do we get these materials into the labs, the tissueculture labs, so that if a natural disaster does happen, we have the material to supply to farmers? So all of these are various methods that we are hoping to strengthen, enhance, and collaborate with going forward with R.E.A.C.H. We also have very simple practical methods that farmers can use, and this goes back to the traditional knowledge again. Simple planting of agroforestry plants mixed in with the fruit crops, which can be used as wind barriers, wind breakers, so that the bananas don't bend and fall in the strong winds from a hurricane. Similarly, the drainage patterns, the use of pits around the plants to ensure that in a drought, the drainage is at its optimal in the case where the farmer doesn't have irrigation. Of course, we would encourage rain harvesting and the use of automated irrigation systems so that we can integrate the technology with the persons involved and go from there. So the R.E.A.C.H project, again, we're very excited about it, and we're hopeful that the data collection and dissemination will come into place because that is very crucial to reach our farmers, all different types of farmers, all age groups. We have to find methods to reach them, and hopefully R.E.A.C.H would allow us to create a platform that can achieve this. Thank you.
First of all, let me bring the greetings of Miss Emanuela Benini, who unfortunately could not join us in this first mission. She is the representative of the Italian Development Cooperation Agency, which has been following this project since its beginning. She wanted me to stress the importance of ensuring the participation of youth in this project, especially following some of the many projects that have been developed in the region, like the Youth In project, I think is named. So she really wanted to stress the opportunity that we still work, that we will work with youth in this project, also because it's one of the main ways of ensuring sustainability of this activity. We're working for a safer and better future, and of course, youth is the key to this. So just let me explain what CIMA will be doing and what I hope I'll be doing with you in the next year, sorry. First of all, CIMA is one of the scientific competence center, I would add, of the Italian Civil Protection Department. And I wanted to stress a lot the issue of science because we have been injecting for approximately 40 years now in the planning process, in developing prevention and preparedness strategies of the Italian civil protection. We've been injecting a lot of science, a lot of preparedness, prevention, planning. I'm not a really big fan of scientific tools and platforms. I am a fan of procedures. if a platform can explain and facilitate a disaster manager in the use of these platforms, in the use of these procedures, then it will be a good tool to use. But in many cases, we have to focus on procedures, on developing procedures in the planning part. We have been talking a lot about climate change adaptability, climate change, and a lot of, everybody's starting to stress about adaptability. With my colleague on the plane, we were starting to think about the fact that maybe we should talk about climate change survival. You've seen recently the effects of climate change in Africa. Mozambique has suffered a huge loss. The second biggest city of Mozambique is destroyed, completely destroyed. It's maybe too early to draw a line between climate change and that particular event, but it really looks like that. So after the first grief, after the first activities in support, now we're starting to see the result. Why it happened? And it happened because there was a lack of planning. There was a lack of prevention and preparedness. Many lives could have been saved if acted accordingly, if acted accordingly to sound procedures for evacuation, for prevention and preparedness. Same thing happened in this region. Same thing happened in the United States of America. Many of you will remember the Hurricane Katrina. So we're talking about the most powerful country of the world that suffered one of the biggest losses due to a natural event. So it's not an issue of money, it's not an issue of funds, of means, it's an issue of, really, it's an issue of preparedness. I wanted to stress this because many times when we talk about prevention and preparedness, people say, okay, but I need the levees, I need the tools, I need cars, I need this, I need money. No, you need to prepare. At least you save the lives, and then the rest, okay, is one of the ingredients for safer communities. So what are we going to do in this project? Exactly this. We will support CDIMA, CIMH, FAO with some data management. So we are going to install a few weather stations in the two islands of the project that we have been developing. They are open hardware and open software weather stations, meaning that they're not tied to us. You will be able to manage them on your own. That's, again, granting sustainability. We're going to work on the planning part, on how communities should manage and prepare in facing disasters. And in the strict correlation between disasters and agriculture, because that's another important part of this project. So the idea is really to use and to create multi-purpose data communication exchanges, so that we have, with one source of data, we're going to be able to develop a multitude of strategies. But again, I don't want to take too much of your time. We will be talking about this in the next day and months. So again, I thank you very much, and I do hope that we will have a very successful project together.